add value to your business, or do you want to just be this administrative person?
And often, if you look at your talent team and the caliber of talent in your company, they correlate.
You could hire the best person for the job if they were in your candidate pool.
All these individual employees, one by one, together, their voices all come together to articulate the culture of the company.
This is
Hiring on all cylinders.
Hello again, recruiting and HR pals out there in podcast land. Rob Stevenson here again for Hiring on All Cylinders, another classic installment hurtling through space and time, bouncing off a satellite, and filling your ears with the sweet, sweet sound of talent advice. We are here again at Fidelity HQ in Boston, Massachusetts. Jill Witty alongside of me again. And we are also joined by the VP of Talent Acquisition for BMO Financial, Cathy Scarlett. Cathy, great to meet you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So you were just kind of rattling off a minute ago all the different arms of talent at BMO, and you said we have university recruiting, we have our inbound team, our outbound team, our RPO, and listed a whole bunch of other ones I hadn't even heard of. So I guess let's start with what keeps you up at night. What are some of your big big challenges you're working on right now?
For sure. The first would be the RPO business. We've had a partnership with our RPO partner for several years. One of the things that keeps me up is just thinking about how do you translate that passion for the customer. So BMO is very, very focused on our customer. We have 43,000 employees worldwide, and without our customer, we wouldn't be in business. When we think about our philosophy from a talent acquisition perspective, our candidates are either current customers or their prospective customers. So we know that first interaction that a recruiter has with a candidate could be an incredible touch point with a customer.
Right.
And so one of the challenges we think about from an RPO model, they're not employees of our company. They're partners, but they may not have the same passion for the company that a typical employee might have of BMO Financial Group. So some of the things that we do, I spend a lot of time with our RPO partner. They're located in many of our locations, but not co-located. So I spend time talking about the business, BMO Financial Group, talking about our passion for the customer. We're very focused on our values and in fact have a framework called Being BMO that outlines the 9 actions and the values that we expect from every single one of our individuals. So that's one way that I find helps me sleep at night is going out and spending time with our RPO provider. But certainly it's keeping at the forefront the importance of BMO and why we're here.
So it's that effort to kind of bridge the gap between someone who's not in your office every day, one of an internal employee speaking on behalf of the company when they reach out to candidates.
Absolutely. And I find when you're on the premises of a company, you're getting that water cooler chat, you're hearing more and more about what is the senior leader doing. At this point, they're not connected to our intranet site, so they're not seeing the daily messages that might be going out or executive or leadership changes. So it's always being thoughtful and bringing those messages out to our RPO provider, right down to the every last detail that we're going to be putting email addresses for every one of our recruiters so that when our hiring managers see the email coming in, they'll actually assume it's from a recruiter who is currently an employee of BMO Financial Group versus it being an outside partner, so that we're all one big family from a recruitment team perspective.
Right, that sounds familiar. We have a similar feature like that we call Send on Behalf of, which allows recruiters to send as a hiring manager. The idea being, candidates want to engage with someone A at the company, but then B as high up in the company as would be relevant to their individual job.
So that would be one thing I'm thinking a lot about. The other would be campus recruiting. And so I've just hired 2 new heads of campus recruiting. One is for the entire enterprise and one is for our capital markets business. And we're spending some time here at the conference with Fidelity and understanding how they're transforming their associate experience. In our capital markets business, our lifeblood are our analysts and our associates. And we also have 2 different markets that we're competing with. In Canada, BMO Financial Group is very, very well known. So students in MBA programs or in undergrad programs want to come work for BMO. In the Midwest, where we also have a presence in the US, we're not as well known. And so most of the students want to go to Goldman Sachs or some of the top tier players. So we think about in Canada, how do we market and get the top tier students? But we're also thinking about how do we explain to folks that may be wanting to go to the Goldmans what a great opportunity it would be to come work at a boutique firm, and that's how we describe ourselves in the U.S. So we're focused very much, as similar to Fidelity, on our analyst and our associate experience, as well as marketing the opportunities that an analyst or an associate could have with BMO Financial Group, whether they stay within capital markets or if they move throughout the organization. On the enterprise side, we're also focused on converting more and more of our summer students. So right now we have about a 53% conversion rate. When you look at that, I think about best practices about 65 or 70, but we really want to grow STEM talent. We have a huge need for data analysts. We have a huge need for technology professionals, and making that connection with students earlier in their student career and having them come back summer after summer and then converting them and staying with us. So that's a couple of initiatives we also have on the go.
It's interesting. It sounds like you have this challenge on the one hand of almost brand building here in the U.S., in the Midwest, you're saying, and then in Canada, you have the established brand, and you're really trying to get the creme de la creme of talent. So, how do you manage that two-headed challenge, which is so different?
Well, one of the things, and it was through trial and error, is it's incredible how important the organization structure of our talent acquisition team is. So the original structure we had was very much a North American structure. But what we found was that recruiters who could hit the ball out of the park in Canada and make a strong connection around our brand didn't quite know how to speak to BMO Financial Group in the Midwest in the U.S. So structurally, the team, I have a Canadian team and I have a U.S. team. And they each focus on their niche areas so that they can speak to the particular candidate they have in that area, draw on local understanding, whether it's of a company, local company, or just having nomenclature that is more familiar with the Midwest, and then say have a Canadian speaking to somebody in the Midwest. So that was one of the tactics we did to try and get at the brand. The core heart of our brand is the same, no matter whether we're in Canada and the U.S. We're known for how focused we are on our people. From a development perspective, we are a people-based organization, so you don't feel like a number when you come join. So the tenets of our value proposition are consistent north-south. It's really what I find is the delivery of it, depending on the marketplace that we're in.
Mm-hmm. So you came here looking for some great ideas especially about campus recruiting. Have you heard anything so far at the meeting from Fidelity or otherwise that you say, okay, I'm going to take this back and try to roll this out at BMO?
One of the big things that I took away from this morning was describing the focus on the analyst and the associate experience was how all of the different teams came together. So there was real estate, benefits, thinking about from the minute that they were attracting the analyst or associate for Fidelity straight through to their career and their next role. And you could see that it cut across silos, that it was a group of individuals passionate about the experience, knowing how critical that role was to the overall company, and coming together and coming with the best optimal solution. So what I'm taking away with a few of my colleagues sitting at the table is how do we cut across our silos? So talent acquisition, real estate, learning and development, and other key stakeholders, how do we think about the experience from end to end and come up with an optimal solution? We're focused a lot on the environment in which an analyst and associate is working, but we're not necessarily thinking about the experience from the end to end, telling that story in the marketplace, and also then having proof points all along the way. So that would be the big aha from this morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine at an organization the size of BMO, how big of a challenge that would be. You almost need one person or one group or committee to be thinking laterally and not just in their individual function.
Absolutely. We have a group that cuts across from a workforce transformation perspective, but it's at a very macro level. So it's thinking about at the enterprise, what could our real estate and premises look like? What are the technology and tools? But the big aha this morning was how critical it is to do it from a role-based perspective, because certain roles require different things, as well as then overlaying the segments. So we just talked about Gen Z, what they might need versus, say, a millennial, and overlaying that on it from a role perspective. So it's quite complex, but I think if you get the right people in the room, you'll be able to solve it, and quickly. Mm-hmm. That would be the last point, is the agility and speed that's required to be competitive and be productive.
Right. So one other thing I'm curious about, going back to the RPO, is, we were talking a little bit about you have the RPO, but you also have internal resources. And I think initially it was a bit of a cost per hire play, where you said the RPO, was able to get you a better cost per hire. But then as you look at the amount of management that you're doing right now, that ultimately, it might be more of a 50-50. So what do you think it would take for your organization to be ready to sort of take the plunge and liberate yourself from the RPO?
I think it would be a few things. One would be having the confidence that our in-house recruitment team would be able to deliver the same efficiency, not only cost per hire, but time to fill. Speed, of course, is very important to our hiring managers. And in some cases, the internal practice that I have is modeled more off of a search firm. So they take a little bit longer. I think when you take a little bit longer, though, you also get great quality.
Yeah.
So it's also demonstrating using facts to our hiring managers that the in-house team can find. Might take a little bit longer, but can find that great talent that they need. I also know that I have a few proponents of our in-house team, and I would use those as my champions. And we're going through an entire technology transformation within the company, and the head of that transformation is a huge proponent of our in-house recruitment team. So we're in fact going to start feathering in more and more of our hiring using the technology transformation into the in-house. I'm not sure we'll ever move completely away from the RPO model. I think at the end of the day, when you look at many companies, they're using RPO for those very, very high volume roles. We have such a high customer service rep and a contact center population. It has very high turnover. I think for a next while, we'll still keep the RPO business for that. But who knows? Other parts of my business are introducing artificial intelligence. They're introducing technology. Over time, perhaps those high volume recruitment could be replaced by technology, by a robot. And so I think we're also just looking at a different configuration moving forward on what a talent acquisition team will look like.
Yeah, I think that resonates a lot with us. We hear a lot about AI. We're working internally on some fun things there. And anytime you can identify a process where the humans are not really adding a ton of incremental value, you could think about then turning that into something where let's let the machines do it and let's let the humans, impact where they really drive value. So in the actual in-person interviews, in the shaping the candidate experience, these very high-touch situations.
Absolutely. And what we heard earlier in the recent presentation around the next generation that's coming is talking about their highest impact interactions, they still want to be human.
Right.
And so I think if we invest in those high-touch recruiters that are able to have that final closing or somewhat of a closing conversation, as well as the hiring manager, I agree with you. You could use the technology to do some of the pieces that may not need to be done by a human. I also have seen some really neat technology that predicts the future success of an individual using logarithms. And so how cool would that be if you could mitigate turnover by using logarithms to actually project the future success of someone?
Yeah, totally. I'm curious, do you guys have, when you're thinking about, okay, let's build a business case for why we might bring more of those resources in-house, have you looked at a quality of hire metric? Is that something that you track from, all the way from source through to how they perform as an employee?
We do. We have 2 quality of hire. We have a manager indice that we look at. So what was the hiring manager's experience all the way through, and how did that impact the hire? And then we go from a candidate perspective. So that's the front end, is what was their experience like, and then the back end, we measure 30-day turnover, 6-month turnover, and 1-year turnover, and start to correlate and understand between the front end experience and the individual and how long they stayed on the back end, what kind of impact do they have. Over time, we're looking to bring in predictive analytics where we'll be able to overlay performance, employee engagement, and some other factors to truly understand the quality and the impact of that hire from a business performance perspective. So it's early days for us, but yes, we are thinking about quality of hire.
Yeah, I think that's everyone's ultimate goal in this space, is to get to that quality of hire metric that truly encapsulates all of those factors. And the fact that you've already sort of gotten to one where it has several of those pieces is tremendous.
Yeah, there's neat technology out there. It's just spending some time investigating it and then putting the pitch together as to whether we would invest in that technology.
Right. Great.
I love it. You heard it here first. BMO wants to invest in advanced technologies for their in-house sourcing team. This has been awesome, Cathy. I could keep listening to you talk all day, but I'm going to let you carry on enjoying the event. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been amazing.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Cathy.